everybody, for joining us today. We're going to have some fun today. Um, and I think I see a lot of new faces. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Zen Peacemakers is a big community. We're about 6,000 people in 20, 25 countries, something like that. And we're so glad that you're here. If you're not a Zen Peacemakers member, it's free. It takes 30 seconds to do it. You can go to the website and just fill out name and email address and so forth, and you can join us that way. But whether you do that or not, be sure to subscribe if you have not done so already. Be sure to subscribe to the newsletter. It comes out once a week. It's coming out today, or came out this morning already, I guess. And it lets us all know what we're doing, what's coming up, what programs are coming, and all of that. And I'll remind everybody, other than our signature bearing witness retreats at Auschwitz-Birkenau and in Alabama and in the Black Hills of South Dakota, other than those retreats and street retreats, everything we do is free. And I am tenaciously committed to continuing that. And we can do that with your help. So if you're inclined, if you have the means, and if not, don't worry about it. But if you have the means and the inclination, and can donate on the website, I will thank you in advance. Um, so today I'm delighted. I have two friends of mine, Lorraine Patton and David Levy, and we're all in the U.S. And I know what we've got folks here from outside the U.S. So welcome to everyone. But the three of us are geographically as far apart from one another as we can get. David's in New York, Lorraine's in San Diego, so the upper right-hand corner and the lower left-hand corner, and I'm smack dab in the middle in Colorado. So we span the U.S. So Lorraine is and David are both good friends of Zen Peacemakers, have been involved in our Zen Peacemaker Order training program. Lorraine is a haiku poet, and David is a flautist or a flutist. And they're going to share their art with us today, and it ought to be lovely. We'll have an opportunity for all of you to comment or ask questions later on. And Lorraine, I'll go ahead and say this now too. And just if we could ask to keep the distraction to a minimum, let's avoid the chat unless there's a technical issue that you might have, and save your comments for when we do Q&A. So with that, I'm going to mute myself. Lorraine, I think I'm passing to you first.
Yes, thank
Thank
you,
you
Jeff.
all.
Thank you
Okay.
all so much. Thank you all so much for being here. It's a real honor to spend this time with you. And just a word or two about me. I've been writing haiku now for about 5 years. It was a pandemic inspired practice. And I've had some success. I've published a bit. My poems do tend to get out there. People seem to like them. But I really view this as a continuous learning inquiry, a learning practice. And I'm delighted to share it with you all. And I take a very sort of a big tent view of haiku. I write very traditional sounding and feeling poems. I write very experimental work. And I think that haiku as a genre is sort of a big enough to hold it all for us. So joining me in the tent today is my friend and fellow artist, David Levy, who will be accompanying some of the work that I share today. And David, if you'd like to say just a few words, and I think you might have a Henry David Thoreau quote for us, or for us as well. So please.
Thank you, Lorraine. Hello, everyone. I just, I guess my preferred way of introducing myself is sort of referring to others, as in, I was thinking this morning that for me, poetry that touches me is a form of music with different notation. Um, and Rumi, the Sufi poet, has a beautiful short poem that has meant a lot to me. It goes like this: all day and night, music, a quiet, bright reed song. If it fades, we fade. And then what Lorraine mentioned, I've had this little quote on my refrigerator door for over 10 years. It comes from Thoreau's journal in 1857, January 13th. When I hear music, I fear no danger. I am invulnerable. I see no foe. I am related to the earliest times and to the latest.
Thank you. Thank you for that, David. And I forgot to ask, can everybody hear us okay? Both of us? Thumbs up if sound is good? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. So we're in this sort of art making, music making, poetry contemplation together today. And the name of this presentation, Haiku Lens, examining the 10,000 joys and the 10,000 sorrows, just in a very broad sense, you know, the Buddha and his followers for centuries have carried the idea forward that our reality in this world is one of joy and suffering, of sorrow and happiness. And I really think that this craft of these tiny words can help us really experience that reality. And considering reality, leaning into it as a source of both joy, peace, and suffering and conflict. And I'm thinking especially of the world that we seem to inhabit is increasingly influenced by conflict these days. There is a way to examine this reality through haiku poetry. So for this time together, I'd like to share some basic ingredients of what goes into haiku poetry, look at some poems. Of course, we will have plenty of time to pause and reflect and Q&A. And maybe some time toward the end, if somebody brought a poem they'd like to offer and share, that'd be wonderful. Or we can discuss the writing process if that resonates. But first, let's just plunge into some work together. And for this introductory plunge, I will offer a few poems. I will read them twice, and then I invite David to respond to each of the poems with some soundscape for us. And before we start, does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. All right. No. So here we go. Out of body experience, the long drive out of Texas. Out of body experience, the long drive out of Texas. Dropping its full weight, the sky no longer bearing hailstone embryos. Dropping its full weight, the sky no longer bearing hailstone embryos. world is dead, and I still have homework. The world is dead, and I still have homework. Breeze in a body of light, breathing evening clouds. The breeze in a body of light, breathing evening clouds. Sacred grove. Even the rain tiptoes on leaves. Sacred grove. Even the rain tiptoes on leaves. Thank you, David, and thank you all for plunging into those poems. So before I screen share and we talk a little bit more about the nuts and bolts, gosh, anybody like to make a quick comment on how that landed for them? A word or two? I can't really see hands, so Jeff, can folks unmute if they'd like and respond, or do I have to do something?
No, you don't have to do anything. I'm going to take the spotlights off you
Okay.
both so that we can see everybody.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
There you go.
So anybody want to jump in with what it was like to receive the poems and the soundscape? Yes.
It was
Bree?
just beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Yes, Bree?
I felt like I was in a trance. It was very soothing. I could feel the words land, and then I could feel the notes land as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bruce, you've got your hand up. I see that.
Thank you.
Yeah, listening and reflecting.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, there's something really interesting about how the accompanying sounds to the poems, they enter us in a unique way, I think, than just encountering them on the page or simply hearing them spoken out loud. So thank you. Thank you all. Okay, I will see if I can do a screen share here. And there we go. Mute myself for just one. Okay, does everybody see that all right?
Looks good, Lorraine.
Okay, thank you. Great. So here we are. Get rid of my profile there. Okay, wonderful. So before well, actually, we've already plunged into the joys and sorrows, right? Those the poems that we just heard could be joyful, could be sorrowful, depending on our how we glean the meaning out of them, and which is lovely because there is really no one way to receive a haiku poem or to invest meaning in it. It can be so many things to so many different readers, which is one of the things I really love about the form. So haiku poems are just these tiny, wondrous gems that may reflect the natural or the human world. Human world, Senryu, and if that's a new term for you, we'll unpack that in a bit. And if you're an experienced haiku poet, thank you for bearing with the brief overview here. But haiku, obviously, they land in the natural world and they land in the human world. They capture discrete moments of time, and they're generally written in the present tense, although past tense can also be present. They have 17 syllables or not, and they can take up 3 or fewer lines, even 4. They often contain a seasonal reference or a kigo, and we'll get into more about that in a few moments. And sometimes they utilize a phrase and a fragment structure. They're not generally complete sentences, but of course that rule, as with a lot of rules in poetry, can and is often broken. And they feature common everyday language. And I like to think that they really reveal something extraordinary in our everyday, ordinary reality by the way images and words and parts are juxtaposed against each other. Here, as in the words of Basho, one of the primary 17th century masters of this fine form, it's a putting together of things, a tori azawamono, if I'm saying that correctly. And to plunge into this conversation about haiku ingredients, let's look at one of the most famous haiku poems that's ever been written by Basho. Old pond, a frog jumps into the sound of water. And there are at least 30 translations of this poem. I think this one is by Sam Hamill. But it is so significant for the history of this form as it migrated into the West from Japan in the 1950s, that many scholars and poets look to this as a really seminal, a really important work that anchors the form. So if we look at the ingredients according to the points I just offered, we see old pond. It's a fragment of a sentence. And it's a natural world setting right in the first line of the poem. There's no I pronouns. The author is, of course, present because they wrote the work, but they are not obviously in the poem itself, if that makes sense. So we start with a fragment, old pond, and then a frog jumps into the sound of water, which is a full sentence, but it's also phrase-like. And it's juxtaposed against the old pond as a place to set the poem. And a frog jumping into the sound of water is a moment in time when the frog leaps. So it's a 2-line phrase. Frog is a kigo, which just means a seasonal reference. And the reference in this case is spring. And one of the resources I'll share at the end of this, and I will invite you to remind me if I don't circle back to the screen to share that resource with you. There's a Kigo database that was put together decades ago, And there is a tradition of basically an encyclopedia of seasonal reference words that are assigned to various seasons. And some poets, when they put a kigo, like frog, into the poem, people know that that's supposed to be a spring poem. But a lot of people don't write with kigo, and I do sometimes, not all the time. So it's just another ingredient that might be helpful. So we have 3 lines. This is fewer than 17 syllables, everyday language, and a compelling juxtaposition of it's not the frog jumping into the water, it's the frog jumping into the sound of water, which is kind of cool and a little unusual, and it makes it a little more compelling. 17 syllable reference for folks who might not be familiar is how I learned about haiku when I was in grade school, as a 3-line poem with 5 syllables, 7 syllables, and 5 syllables. And I write in that mode. I have some wonderful friends and poets who write in that mode. I think it's beautiful and wonderful. And I also write in much more abbreviated fashion. And as I said, big tent. I love the traditional haiku, and I love the more avant-garde gestures as well. Oop, let me go back to here. Oh, here we go. Again from Basho. The summer grass is all that remains of a soldier's dream. So Basho is alluding to war here in terms of he's implying the past by talking about it as a present dream. And it's a bit of a change of direction. And we're in the human realm now. And to me, it's a very open debate about what is really a senryu and what is really a haiku. A lot of poets use the term haiku as sort of an umbrella term for both. But I would say the frog jumping into the sound of water is definitely a haiku because there really is no human presence there. But in this case, you could call this a senryu because it's a soldier's dream, and that immediately lands us into the present or the immediate past of war. Even more so, I would say, with the next poem I'll offer by Mayuzumi Madoka, contemporary poet, choosing a swimsuit. When did his eyes replace mine? So we have the fragment again, choosing a swimsuit. When did his eyes replace mine is again a full sentence. But the contrast and juxtaposition to me invites a very specific gendered situation and realm of feeling that belongs to the human sphere in this haiku poem. Here we are, firmly back in one of the 10,000 sorrows. No arms or legs. They turned the man into a log before sending him home. Yeah, this is by Tsuru Akira. It's from 1937. And of course, he died the following year in prison because this poem was considered inappropriate. He wrote it at the time when Japan was engaged with a conflict in China. He was arrested for this and for other senryu that he wrote, and he died in prison in 1938. Moving on to eating cured whale meat in the twilight days of the human race. Ozawa Minoru is a leading contemporary Japanese haiku poet. He's writing today, and this is one of his more recent works as well. So another dimension, not only we're in both eating cured whale meat, I'm assuming that means humans, and we see humans appear in the 3rd line, but the twilight days of the human race, I take that as a broader gesture that includes the natural world and is actually offering a little critical commentary on how perhaps we are degrading that natural world. The twilight days of the human race. So this is the first poem that I read a few moments ago. And I would call it a senryu. Out-of-body experience, the long drive out of Texas. And on one hand, this poem, as folks have told me, is kind of a surreal road trip where you sit in a car, miles and miles and miles of the same landscape, and it feels surreal and it feels sort of out of body. And I wrote this poem in the run up to the overturn of Roe versus Wade. So what it takes to access reproductive health care, which might include an abortion, which is or could be considered an literal out-of-body experience. That's kind of what I was aiming for in the poem, but I've had really very interesting and diverse feedback to this poem. And again, it just is lovely because people can invest their own meaning. They can glean so much out of just a small bundle of words. Excuse me. There we go. Dropping its full weight, the sky no longer bearing hailstone embryos. I also read this one, and this is a 5-syllable, 7 and 5-syllable structured poem. I studied with Clark Strand, who's just a wonderful, wise resource and brilliant poet who works in the more traditional vein of struct syllabic count to poems. And Hailstone Embryo, I did a lot of research. I think Clark offered this Kigo as a challenge for us studying with him on Hailstone. Come up with a Kigo, or rather a poem for that Kigo, which is a summer Kigo. So I surfed around and came up with the meteorological event of hailstone embryos as the small bits of water that form, and more water accretes around this tiny stone, if you will, as a thunderstorm swirls around it, very cold water, it condenses and then it falls through the storm, growing in size until it becomes a hailstone. So the start of that process is, it called it an embryo. And I thought, oh, that's very interesting, obviously, because of the relation to the human realm as well. And the shedding of embryos, the shedding of something resonant in the human as well as the natural world in this case. Another hailstone poem, their constant chatter. I catch every other word, hailstones on the roof. This is also a 5-7-5 style of haiku. And I was playing with the notion of, well, it's another take on hailstones. If we're in the room and there's constant chatter, I guess it could be because people are talking and I can't quite hear what they're saying because of the chatter on the roof from the hailstones, or maybe it's just the hailstones, but I decided on chatter as an interesting word to kind of give it a little more depth and let it linger a little bit longer. Moving into a 1-line version of a haiku, so we're away from 3 lines. Now we're in the realm of just 1-line poems, which are really fascinating in their own right. Again, all of the ingredients that we talked about in the beginning, they're quite flexible, as we're seeing. Trailside rapper, an apex predator. And as I read that 1 line, I automatically put a little pause. Trailside rapper, an apex predator. And I think in this case, the poet decided to put it into 3 lines might make it a little too brief and didn't really structurally look like it could fit, or visually. I think he might have felt it was better as a 1 line, which is totally okay. But again, we're in both the natural world, trail side, and yet we're looking at habitat degradation. We're looking at apex predator, which is us, right? The evidence of us being predators is that we're leaving our trash aside the trail, which is in turn going to affect the natural balance, natural order of everything else on the planet in addition to us. Milk Moon, a fawn licks the salt from a logging road. Back to our 3 lines. And And Alan, wonderful poet, Trash Panda is a journal that really focuses in poems that speak to the current state of the world, the relationship between the human and the natural realms, and especially leans into how we are negatively affecting those realms. So in this case, Milk Moon is also a Kigo. It's a type of moon also that appears in May. It's named for a time when traditionally milk production is high due to the abundance of grass for grazing. And here I think there's also a connection to a fawn that perhaps is malnourished, perhaps its mother is no longer around, and maybe there's habitat destruction, so it can't sustain itself. And of course, we literally land in the third line, we land on the logging road. So there's the moment in time there. Come out to view the truth of flowers blooming in poverty. Back to Basho. And again, we have, I think, in our overarching theme of joys and sorrows, I think there might be room for both joy and sorrow in this poem. Clearly, by including the word poverty, which is a really heavy word in and of itself, in the third line, that's one direction the poem goes. But come out to view the truth of flowers blooming is just so beautiful. And then to juxtapose that with poverty, to me, it really typifies this kind of both and approach to a poem that can speak to both the joys and the sorrows of a moment in reality that Basho is offering us. And this second poem here on this page, this one line, this long line, I also read this poem, The breeze in a body of light, breathing evening clouds. We also heard this poem, and I wonder, please, somebody tell me when the screen share is over, did you think that poem was 3 lines, like in your own mind as you were hearing it? What was it like? I think I read it a couple different ways, and what I like about this poem, which has a lot going on in it, is the visual appearance of the one line lets the reader decide, and the person speaking the poem, where to break a little bit, where to put the emphasis on certain words. And as I look across this line visually, breeze in a body of light, light breathing evening clouds. There's so many ways I can enter this poem in my own way. And I don't get, in this case, the cues that are present, say, in the Basho poem above, because he's putting in the line breaks, right? And the line break is a signal for the reader to pause just for a moment before they go on to the second line, read the second line. And because it's a phrase, the truth of flowers blooming in poverty, we tend to read right through the second line to the third. But still, the physical orientation on the page, I think, is really interesting to look at just with these 2 poems, because there's so much meaning, so much variation we can get from how the poem visually appears on the page, or when we just hear it read aloud. There's there's another form of Japanese short form haiku based or influenced poetry called haibun, which is a combination of prose narrative story juxtaposed with haiku. The haiku come before the prose, sometimes they come at the very end, and sometimes the haiku is broken up into 3 or 4 different lines, and it spatially occurs between the paragraphs of the text. And it's really interesting. I don't often read a lot of haibun to folks if they don't have it in front of them, because a word just appears when you're hearing it and it doesn't really make sense given the flow. But when you see it on the page, it's really interesting, because the visual placement of just a few words juxtaposed with paragraphs of text really invites the reader to derive a lot of interesting meaning from that type of visual structure. So just kind of playing, another key ingredient to this whole thing is playing with the form and letting the white space on the page, whether it's there or it's absent, line breaks, let them also invest meaning into what you're trying to express in these tiny words. Just a couple more here. Air raid shelter, the quieter callings of stray cats and doves. So this, was looking to juxtapose types of sounds. And a lot of poems actually put words that evoke sounds into poems because as a reader, we hear that air raid shelter in our mind's eye. We see it and we hear it. So I was trying to juxtapose that with quieter callings of stray cats and dogs. And maybe those quieter callings are also callings of resilience, optimism, perhaps hope. Dove is associated with hope. So I wanted to create that contrast between the air raid shelter, which is, scramble for safety, and something else that might lighten that just a little bit. To Leroy Gorman's poem, My Ancestor's Weapon, made from wood of a tree in blossom now. And I believe that whole thing is probably a grammatically correct sentence. But nevertheless, we have line breaks that help us move through the poem. And again, here, just I think similar to that, the Basho poem of Flowers and Poverty, we have this juxtaposition of my ancestor's weapon, clear war reference, right? With softer sounds. So I'm sorry, softer idea of wood from a tree that's blossoming now. So there's the beauty of resilience and restoration of a tree that was used for a weapon now for something beautiful. So again, I think here Leroy captured both joys and sorrows in the same poem. A white rose in a white vase, an open door. I love this poem. Repetition is something that we didn't look at as a primary ingredient, but it works. It works. There's also interesting alliteration in a way. Rose, vase. The S sound is a little bit different, but it's present in two of the lines. And it helps us kind of gently flow from first line to second line to the third line. And I'm not sure what Ron intended here, but I read a white as a very peaceful, a white rose. It's also has Christian reference, if not other reference, to something that honors a death, honors a passing. So it's an invitation. White rose, a white vase, an open door. Sacred grove. Even the rain tiptoes on leaves. We also heard this one at the opening. And Sonali's Sacred Grove poem, here it is visually. There's something tender about the repetition of words and just a wonderful hush. Sacred grove. I mean, there's probably nothing overtly spiritual about a grove of trees, but I invest nature and groves with a whole lot of spiritual meaning. And just that even nature itself is respecting the sacredness of that, of that space. And so we're also back in the realm, sacred grove, even the rain tiptoes on leaves. There's no real human presence there, although the human is standing back, observing this moment and offering us this reflection in the form of a haiku. The world is dead, and I still have homework. We heard this one, and it's kind of humorous, a little ironic, right? And what I love about this poem is that now we've heard it, we can see it on the page, and we also have an interesting experiment in how the words themselves, 4 lines for 4 words, really anchors those words, right? It's a kind of a blunt presentation. And then a more lengthy pause between dead and the and, as if the poet's thinking, ugh, and I still have homework. So the structural appearance on the page here is very important, I think, to emphasize meaning in this poem. And in a poem, in a very general sense, if your haiku really makes sort of a visual structure around itself, sometimes poets call that a concrete poem, where sometimes the shape of the words on the page actually adds to the meaning. And in fact, I mentioned haibun earlier, and I have encountered haibun where all of the prose, before you get to the haiku, the prose was in the shape of a house. So the roof line, square, and then the last line of the prose was like the bottom of the house. And then the haiku was 3 lines, meaning the steps up into that dwelling. So it's kind of a cool thing to play with in thinking about what haiku can possibly be. Okay, I think I just have one more here. Yeah, 2 more actually. Colossal dark crane, where there was a wrecking ball, a star. My friend Richard published this, and again, I think he really is landing on the combination of destruction, perhaps sorrow, with something beautifully ineffable. A colossal dark crane portends destruction, perhaps. Where there was a wrecking ball, yes, certainly destruction, a star. And I like the way he arranged this poem because he put a star all alone on its 3rd line. And just by giving it that much space, that much attention, it brings more depth to it, I think, for us. Daybreak, a poem's perfect yoke. Back to the 1 line, or another 1 line. Yeah, this is just a lovely, 5 words. My goodness, so much going on there. It's another thematic experiment, I think, in haiku, where this poem is about writing poetry itself, right? It's about the poem and perhaps the author's quest to craft a perfect poem without breaking the yoke, without putting something in that didn't need to be there, perhaps. I mean, I visualize this perfect circle with the small circle in the center. And of course, in this 1 line, the word poem is right in the center. So structurally, I think it works really, really well as just a single line. And the moment is daybreak. So we have the momentary situation and success, perhaps after many attempts at breaking the yoke of a poem. So I'll pause here just to kind of reemphasize, we have joys and sorrows, and haiku poets, we can lean into all sorts of different things in our environments. We can lean into natural beauty and degradation if we feel called to bear witness to that, to conflict and solidarity, safe passage, restoration, truth to power, resilience, and healing. It can be both and it's not a mandate to anybody to lean into uncomfortable topics for your poems at all. It's just an invitation that they can be considered if that's where you'd like to go with them. So I think what I'll do, I will stop the screen share here, but remind me to go back because I just had a couple of poems, resources that I wanted to share with you, but let me stop for the moment here. Okay, yay, here we are. And gosh, please raise your hands, feel free to unmute. Thoughts, comments, questions? Anybody like to chime in on what they thought about all that?
Oh.
Anybody? I hear someone cleared their throat, but anybody want to raise a hand or at this point, if you'd like to put something in the chat, please feel free. Francesca? Yeah.
Hi. You spoke about haiku mixed with prose, and I didn't quite catch the name of that, and I wonder if you could say a bit more about that.
Yes, thanks. It's haibun, and that's spelled Haibun. And it dates back to 17th, 18th century. It's become quite popular here in the States and around the world. And haiku are so brief. They're these little gems. And sometimes I think, oh, I'd love to write a haiku about what I saw yesterday happening in the backyard. but there's too much going on. The essence of what I might feel is important to convey, I can't just capture in 3 lines. So it's a lovely option for storytelling, quite frankly. You can weave a lovely narrative about what you saw. And when you juxtapose that narrative about your experience with a haiku, ideally the haiku doesn't summarize the story, but it adds additional meaning. It adds another layer of inference beyond what the prose can convey. So haibun typically has 3 elements. The first is the title, the prose portion, and then the haiku. And there can be many haiku. There can be several paragraphs. I usually write briefer haibun, but I know some that go on for a page or 2 and have several haiku. And just like the haiku doesn't summarize, it helps the reader appreciate another layer of meaning that's not revealed in the text, but maybe it's inferred. The title also really shouldn't tell you what the poem, what the piece is about. And so getting all of these three pieces kind of on the same page, if you will, but not mirroring each other is really quite a challenge. But it's a really compelling invitation.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes, Judd?
Yeah, hi. Thank you for your
Hi
presentation.
there. Oh, you're so
Well, I've
welcome.
been working with haiku for a long time,
Wonderful.
decades. So, and I still have the question, so I'll put it to you. When does when is a haiku just a short poem?
Well, I think you can call every haiku a short poem because technically it is.
Well, is every short poem a haiku? Is haiku?
Just no. So, but and I read by your wording just a short poem, meaning it's not really a haiku. It's more of a free verse poem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't have any answer for you, any definitive answer. I just have an experience. And others, please, other poets that would like to chime in, please feel free. For me, I look for some of those key ingredients that we started with, you know, an interesting juxtaposition, a phrase fragment structure. Another thing that I have found true for myself and for other poets is if I'm writing a haiku and it really doesn't fit in 3 lines, there's too much going on. I sometimes think, well, maybe it could be a haibun, which I mentioned, or maybe it could be a tonka, which is a 5-line poem that, again, historically dated with a very clear syllabic rhythm, but has also evolved to be much more free in what you can say. And sometimes having just 2 additional lines, of just an addition of just 3 or 4 more words, really makes it a compelling tonka. But to your question, a tonka versus a short poem, I think those distinctions are even blurrier, quite frankly. You know,
Have you worked with American sentences? You know what Ginsburg?
yes, yeah. And a lot of people credit Ginsburg and Kerouac and others for kind of reinventing the haiku as a 1-line poem, right? Because they really looked at those forms, and Kerouac looked at the forms, and they said, okay, what else can we do with this?
Mm-hmm.
And so and there are some haiku poets who write extremely long. I mean, the poem I shared with the evening clouds, that's a long 1-line poem for me. But I know poets who write them very successfully. And there's a real fine line, I think, between putting too much in a 1 line and putting just enough to give the reader the opportunity and the reason and the interest to go back and read it over and over again, because you get more out of it each time you look at it. So there's that as well.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about it as a one-line poem because I understood Ginsburg to be saying it's limited to 17 syllables, but not necessarily to 1 line. Like in my experiments with them, I've tried writing them 17 syllables, but not in the order that, say, a traditional haiku would be.
Right. Right. So it's not 5-7-5, but it is 17. Exactly. Yeah. That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. And I know poets who really love Billy Collins, former poet laureate of the US, loves the 575 medium, if you will, because it's a restriction, it's a boundary. And so it condenses his thought, it condenses the process to something that really works for him. I also look at it as something like that. And then sometimes I write a 575 and I'm like, oh, you know, I sometimes my habit is I go in and I say, oh, I can make it 575 if I make that verb a progressive or a gerund rather than just the verb. I use going instead of go. And so I ask myself, what does that do to the poem? And I find in my own work, sometimes that just makes it sing. Sometimes it feels like I'm adding a little too much. So I'm complying with the structure and I'm sacrificing something I'm trying to get at the poem. So, so I do both. I go back and forth
Right.
with
Right.
it. So yeah.
That's a conflict. Sometimes the attempt to bring it into structure ruins a perfectly good poem.
It all depends what you're trying to go for. And just to speak to that, I judged a contest a couple of years ago. It's in Vancouver, Canada. There's an annual cherry blossom festival, and cherry blossoms are one of the most popular kigo, yes, seasonal word in the whole tradition of Japanese haiku. And they're wonderful, and they're everywhere. There's so many, and so there's this haiku invitational as part of this festival. And I was invited to judge it one year with a couple other poets. And we must have read 2,500, 3,000 cherry blossom poems from all over the world, different age groups, different countries. It was fabulous. And of course, we read a lot of 17 syllable work, and we read a lot of much shorter work. And some of the 17 syllable work was fantastic, some of it was not. And it was the same across the board with all the styles. And I thought to myself, my goodness, and some of it was just what was so beautiful about participating in that was there was such this outpouring of resonance of everything that the cherry blossom symbolized to the global community of anybody who admires a cherry blossom poem for whatever reason. Birth, death, life passing, and war, peace. It was all there. It was such an outpouring. I thought, oh my goodness, that this art form can channel so much of a global sense of what's important and meaningful. Kind of didn't matter if it was a good poem or not. Yeah, on one hand, do you know what I mean? It was an incredible way to channel people's emotional resonance through a lens of haiku, which I thought was just stunning. It was just so beautiful and so desperately needed, especially these conflict-filled days. But anyway, thank you for that question. It's an ongoing conversation for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Yes. Oh, I'm Francesca. Did anybody else? Did I see a hand? Sorry.
Yes, but
Go ahead.
I've already gone once, so if there's somebody else. Okay, am I muted? No. Sometimes I have difficulty I see something in nature that affects me greatly. Like I just saw 3 snakes copulating or whatever you want to call that. And it was quite an amazing thing. And they were using a garden fence as they were wound around the garden fence on each other. And so I started trying to write a poem about that. And I kept writing and writing and rewriting, and I realized, what am I trying to say here? It was my experience, and then that was the amazing thing of them. And then also they were on the fence. The fence was like a loom, and I couldn't decide what I was trying to say. So I don't know. I don't know what you could say to that, but I'd love to hear it.
That what you just shared to me is a beautiful summary of the writing process. I write 10, 12, 14 different versions of haiku before I feel like I'm coming up with something that is satisfactory sometimes. It's a wonderful habit I developed is to always carry a small journal or a small lined notebook or something or if I can type fast enough on my phone to capture something that I see in the moment I see it or I experience it. Perhaps a snippet of conversation I heard, not deliberately eavesdropping, but in passing. And sometimes that if I jot it down, I remember it, it takes me back into my own experience. Oh my gosh, I remember I heard somebody say this. In fact, yes, I was having breakfast at a hotel in New York City a bunch of years ago, brunch on a Sunday, and the son and his mother were sitting behind me, and he was having a conversation with her about what he perceived to be signs of cognitive decline. And I was like this. I just didn't want to obviously not participate in this, but I wrote down that I heard a conversation like this because it deeply resonated with my own conversations with my own parents. So I went on, I saved it, I went on and I wrote about it later. One of the things that I found helps is to get something where you can jot it down and then take a full sheet of paper. Again, I tend to work offline rather than online initially.
Mm.
And I start in four corners and I just write whatever comes
Oh, wow.
bunch of different words that might mean nothing to the poem. The point is not to generate something that's publishable or something that is going to make it into the poem, but just whatever's there. And then after 5 or 10 minutes, I stop and I look it over and I say, oh, that's an interesting word. Huh, does that fit with what I think I'm trying to put into words here or not? I think Natalie Goldberg, if I'm not mistaken, has I won't say a similar process, but she has a process of sort of like it's the artist's way of writing where you just write nonstop for a certain length of time, no censorship, no nothing. And then out of that whole body of whatever you write down, it's really interesting how, looked at with a fresh pair of eyes, connections come out. And if you go in with the intention of something that you experienced and you saw, you're going to write words about that. It's really interesting how sometimes certain words, certain feelings about the words that you wrote will guide you in a direction that could kind of filter down into a haiku. If that's helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you're
Again.
welcome. You're welcome. Okay. What? Yes.
Barkley
Yes.
has a hand up.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, thank you. Yes, please. Thanks, Jeff, for pointing me to folks. I can't see everybody. Barkley, go ahead.
Unmute. Hello, thank you so much.
Oh, you're so
And I don't, I guess I'm going to preface, I don't mean to crosstalk in this moment. I just find what that other individual just now was sharing, I didn't catch her name, of being in awe of a moment at times. And I feel like the poet is this mirror of life and of experience and of the phenomenon. And I personally, sometimes when I'm not able to contain it in words, I just find that moment is such a moment to bask in the sense of just like, oh, this can't be. I mean, it could be. I can fit it into something, but also like as a human, just to be able to experience that awness. Yeah. I think like I'm not disagreeing with what you're sharing in the least. I'm only sharing like, yeah, you can either go this way or you can go this way, and sometimes just swinging off the other direction of just being present, where all poetry begins, and just being like, and this, the marvel of it. I don't know. I just found that like an interesting kind of approach also, because sometimes the sky, the sunset, all these different moments, like, must I contain it? Can I contain it? Like, yeah. So I think it's a good point of, it's a beautiful place to be, to be able to be with those snakes in that moment and admiring the intricacies and the delicacies of that moment and being like, how do I even begin to, but yes. That's my little off comment there, but I appreciate.
Oh, no, not at all, Barkley. Thank you. That's an invitation to us to consider, well, what is the timing of this? And is it appropriate? Right? I'm witnessing something, and there are life moments, things that we witness and we experience that I say, oh my gosh, yeah, at some point, perhaps I will reflect on this, but now is not the time. Now is exactly as you invite. Just being present to the miracle, magnificence. And I will also say, it's also just to bear witness to the tragedy of this homeless person on the street. I live I live 15 minutes from the US-Mexico border, and there is a colossal human tragedy happening there. And I'm not writing about it
Sure.
because I'm still in that, I don't know what to do about this. And it's not my story, really. But I think it deserves to be, I need to bear witness to it. And so that just bearing witness itself, to your point, it's magnificent in every dimension, be that good, bad, ugly, evil, or what have you. And I think sometimes with all art creation, there is just this a balance between having the experience, bearing witness to it, and then maybe that will filter into a gesture of some kind at some point.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Anybody else? Comments? I will go back to the screen share to share resources, but before I do that, Susie, did you have something you'd like to offer?
Just a quick thing. I seem to remember Clark Strand saying, and he had a haiku, and I think it had to do with morning glories. I could almost bring it to mind, but I seem to remember him saying that he came up with 2 lines, and it took him years to get to the 3rd. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that, but I'm not surprised at all.
So it's kind of a little bit of reassurance that sometimes haiku just take their own time, I guess.
Absolutely true. I have lots of fragments and phrases, and sometimes if I do write something down as if it were to become 3 lines, there's a line there, it's blank. I'm like, yeah, that's interesting, but I have nothing to really offer it beyond what's there right now. So yeah, thank you for that. It takes the time it takes. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, love. Just a general observation. What I love about haiku is, one, it can hold 2 contrary ideas at once, depending on how you interpret it. And also, in a world where we photograph our food, where we see what's happening and immediately pull out our camera, there's something extraordinarily beautiful about what you were saying about being in the moment and then later finding the words or the ideas to convey the weight of it. I just think it's fascinating.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, and those moments that we do remember, or we experience, and we remember, oh, I experienced this event, this thing, these feelings. Sometimes the poems that arise from that recollection or that processing over time are completely different
Yes.
than the original experience itself.
Yeah.
You know, I was in a workshop once where the poet actually took us through all of the drafts, all of the iterations.
Yeah.
And there were 7 or 8 different iterations. And if you looked at where it started, the original moment, the idea, the gist, and where it ended up, you would never imagine. And so it's really cool to see how that one person kind of navigated that process, and made it explicit for us. It was fascinating. So after that, I became much less shy about filling a whole page with my meandering scribbles, trusting that maybe there's something that's going to come out of this at the end, distill into something that's compelling or interesting. Okay, well, we've got some time, so
Lorraine, I think Philip has his hand up.
oh, thank you again. Please keep telling me that, because I'm clearly not seeing everyone here. Philip, please.
Hi, wonderful talk. I unfortunately missed the first 15 minutes, and I noticed that this was being recorded. Will it be available so that I could see the part that I missed later on?
Absolutely, Philip. It takes us a few days to cook it, but by next week it'll be up on the website in the media library.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, Anne, I see you there.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer a little side benefit to haiku, which doesn't really have to do with the writing per se. But about a year ago, I took the Upaya little class on haiku, and I came. It was wonderful, and I came away from that and decided I was going to make a just a real effort to write a haiku every day. And so it didn't last for the whole year, but it lasted for long enough that I felt what the discipline of that did was not the poems themselves, but the fact that every day I walk my dog, and it's usually about an hour and a half. I live very close to the Spokane River, so we walk, amongst the black locust trees and the river, lots of homeless people. And so there's a real mix of things. And what it did for me was that I became so much more aware of the minutia in my environment. And I think I was looking for something that I could later write about. But even if I didn't write about it, it really taught me what a rich place I live in. And it was, so that was a side benefit of making a little sort of vow I was going to try this. And so I just offer that as a discipline that is sometimes kind of helpful.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for that. Yes, absolutely. I mean, just sit anywhere and just really pay attention to what's happening in your environment, whether it's out your window or whether you're out in nature or you're in a city or whatever. There's so much happening. So part of the practice, I think, as you're offering as well, is to be there and slow down so you can take it in, not passing over things so much. Yes. So wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for offering that.
You're welcome.
Jeff, do you see anybody else? Anybody else want to chime in?
I don't see anyone else just yet. No.
Okay, there we have time. So at this point, what would you all feel if I invite David back into the tent with us and I'll read a few more poems and he can respond to them. Does that sound like a good idea? Oh, thumbs up. All righty. That sounds great. Okay, David, thank you so much. One moment, let me just get some water here. Okay. Again, I'll read both of these, each poem twice, and then David will honor us with his soundscape. My ancestor's weapon, made from the wood of a tree in blossom now. My ancestor's weapon, made from the wood of a tree in blossom now. Colossal dark crane, where there was a wrecking ball, a star. Colossal dark crane, where there was a wrecking ball, a star.
Wow.
Daybreak, a poem's perfect yoke. Daybreak, a poem's perfect yoke. to view the truth of flowers blooming in poverty. Come out to view the truth of flowers blooming in poverty. A white rose in a white rose, an open door. A white rose in a white vase, excuse me, a white rose in a white vase, an open door. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, David. And please, if anybody would like to know about the flutes, or David, would you like to offer a little bit about them?
Well, these are wooden Native American style flutes. Um, I Part of what fascinates me is each one is made of a different wood, and so the voice of the flute, the mood, the way I'm drawn into a flute is not only the size or the way it's made, but the wood itself has got a very distinct participation in the sound. And maybe just I'm always fascinated with this. If anyone, if you're familiar with the Native American style flutes, they have these totems on here. Sometimes they're shape of a bird or an animal, a bison, or a little more abstract. And underneath are these holes. So when you breathe in, the breath comes down the flute and hits in between these two holes. There's a wall. So the breath comes in, hits the wall, and rises up the hole. And so if I were to breathe into the flute without the block, there's a wonderful direct kind of relationship with breath and spirit for me. And then if you put this on, what happens is the breath is shooting up the first hole, when it hits the wall. There's the tiniest, it's hard to see, but there's a little channel that connects the two holes. And so with this on, the breath shoots down that little channel, and then you have this. So quite a leap from that windy breath to
Yeah.
anyhow. So there's a little taste of these flutes.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Since well, actually, let me go back to the screen share because I want to share some resources with you. A couple last pages, and feel free to take a photograph, all our technology, or a screenshot. And I will also, for the final slide will be my email and David's as well, in case you would like to reach out to us with any further questions. Let me go back into here for a moment. Here we go. That's where we were. And let's see. There we go. Just a few resources. Haiku Foundation, Haiku Society of America, great places to start your exploration or to find lots of different types of resources. One of the Japanese poets that I read, Ozawa Minoru, his book of contemporary Japanese poetry is, oops, I misspelled Japanese part, sorry about that. And then William Higginson, Penny Harder, Haiku Handbook, Haiku Poet's Guide, and Blythe, who really imported haiku from Japan to the West back in the 1950s. And I was speaking about Kigo, the sort of season or reference words. There's a World Kigo database where you can type in cherry blossom or tiger or clover and find out if it's a Kigo, and then reference material about where it's used and how it's used, and sample poems. It's Clark Strand, who runs the weekly haiku challenge on Facebook. And the rest of these others are really just, there are so many journals out there. This is really just a top-down view. Haiku Society of America has a journal, Frog Pond, Heron's Nest, Kingfisher. These are well-known journals. One way to explore this form, if you're not already engaged and you'd like to be, would be to go to Haiku Society of America, and you can find regional haiku groups wherever you live in the States, if you're in the States. And then you can join a group. They usually meet monthly or so, and they share poems. Sometimes they're like critique workshops. You can really talk about the craft and how you'd like to shape it. Very, very helpful. And Zen Peacemakers, I would be remiss if I did not mention an opportunity that we provide here at Zen Peacemakers on a monthly basis. We have a haiku page, and I'm one of the judges on a monthly basis, and we give different prompts for each month, and it's just a lovely community of folks who send us work of all shapes and sizes and descriptions, and it's just a real joy to read so much work. So if you're inclined to submit, please feel free. And lastly, here's my contact info and David, in case you would like to reach out with any further questions. And we do have a couple more moments. And because we talked a little bit about Haibun, I was wondering, I'd be happy to read one for you. And I'll show you the page so you can get a sense of what I was speaking about in terms of the three parts of the Haibun, and just to get a sense of what that's like. So would you like me to read something pretty brief? Okay, great. Thank you. All righty. This is from my self-serving moment. This is from my book that came out a couple of years ago. And this piece is called Throttle. And I'll read it first, and then I'll show you how it appears on the page. Throttle. The Bronco's on and off the brakes, so I ease up to leave more room between us. Some swerving each time the driver reaches over to tend to what I imagine must be an excited puppy in the passenger seat. Playdate. He pulls over to the curb so everyone behind him can make their way around. The sound of marbles. Those curious dog ears suddenly become the tousled hair of a young boy cowering as Bronco lifts himself out of his seat and leans over with both hands, hitting the floor. So here's how the haiku on its own is playdate, the sound of marbles hitting the floor. And here's how it appears on the page. I don't know if you can see that or not. So this approach is sometimes called a woven or a braided haiku, where you break up the lines and you insert them between the paragraphs. Visually, it has the effect of really punctuating each line of the poem, but when you hear it, it can be a little odd because it's this couple of words coming out of the flow and the context of the piece as it's read. So that's just a snapshot of a really wonderful variation of haiku, using it in concert, if you will, with a haibun, with some prose story. And this happened a couple of years ago, as I was driving along, and the whole thing. And I pulled over because I was so shaken by what I had witnessed. I did not get a look at the license plate, so I didn't follow through and call the police to do something about what to me seemed like an instance of abuse happening right there. And I sat on that experience for about a year and a half before I wrote about it. But yeah. Not to leave things on a distressing note, but just to give you a taste of what haibun is like, as well as how it integrates these tiny poems. Any further? We got a few minutes. We can close early if folks are ready for that. It's been such a joy and such an honor to share this work with you. I want to thank you so much for supporting Zen Peacemakers, for supporting this work. David, thank you so much for your evocative soundscape. I loved having yet another dimension of art to kind of feed us as we experience this work together. So I hope you all enjoyed that as well.
Yes, and thank you both, Lorraine and David. This was wonderful, and one of the really impactful things that I take away is, Lorraine, you did such a good job kind of describing structure and rules and elements that, and then and then you kind of brush that all away and say, or not.
Or not. Really. It goes along with my both and big tent attitude. Really, it's very interesting how you can experiment with these forms. And that first really happened here in the West, in the States, I should say. Cor Vandenheuvel, a poet deceased for more than a few years now, but I think in the 60s or 70s, he was published in a major haiku journal with a poem. Perhaps some of you know it. The poem was one word, tundra. And it appeared on an all-white blank page, tundra. That was it.
Wow.
Get the sense of, yes, the tundra landscape surrounds this one word. Really interesting. And believe me, it got praise. It was criticized. Oh, it's too clever. Oh, it's kind of kitschy, whatever. But it was really important for the whole form. People could now move in a more experimental direction. And of course, always respecting the traditions and the context that we're all working in.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yes, Philip, any further last comments?
Yeah, in terms of the development of the form, I may be mistaken here, but my impression is that the three-line haiku form itself is really a residue of a much larger form of which the last three lines survive independently. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that is correct. And it was first, the whole art form, the whole practice was a group affair. Renku is the abbreviated version of a scenario where you would get together in a room, lots of sake, lots of laughter, and you would take turns writing verses around the room. And they were of a humorous nature, tongue-in-cheek nature. But yes, eventually people decided, yes, well, let's take a piece of that renku and let's let that stand on its own. And of course, Basho in the 17th century was one of the primary poets to really sort of surround his practice, both with just the isolated form and really integrating it into experience of nature, because he was a pilgrim for much of his life, and he wrote according to what he saw and explored happening in nature around him. Very formative.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
I think we can wrap up. But Lorraine and David, before we go, I'd like to gift you with one that I wrote in January. We had the essayist Pico Iyer as a guest, and he and I had so much fun. I wrote this for him afterwards and sent it to him. It's just called For Pico, and I think it doesn't follow any of the rules. Free to ask questions, freed from the need for answers,
Ooh,
silence echoing.
very nice. Can you read it one more time, please?
Free to ask questions, freed from the need for answers, silence echoing.
Very nice. Very, very nice.
So thank you. That's for you guys.
Thank you so much. That's a real gift. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for staying with us. Hopefully, everybody enjoyed this, and keep an eye on our calendar and come see us again. We try to keep it interesting. So, bye now.